Live One here on BNET.com. I'm your host, Priya David Clemens. The Live One is the show where we help managers manage their business, their careers, and even their personal lives from time to time. Today, our topic is a serious one. We're talking about workplace bullying. Have you or someone you know ever been bullied? Have you ever experienced that? If you have, please join us during our live chat. You can see that window just to the right-hand side of your screen. Ask us your questions, bring us your comments, and we will bring them to the experts who are going to be joining us today. We've got two BNET bloggers who know a lot about bullying, one from an HR perspective and one from the issue of whether or not bullying should be deemed illegal, and a little bit more about it from the state's perspectives. So we'll be bringing both of those people on in just a moment. But first, I'm going to be joined by Pam Kruger, who's a BNET editor. Hi, Pam. She's joining us from New Jersey.
Hi, how are you?
Good, doing well. So when you started seeing some of these studies, one in particular that was out just a few months ago last year, where they talked about 1 in 3 workers having experienced being bullied, were you surprised by that? It seems like a really high number.
Yeah, I was, and also that coupled with this movement to basically make it illegal seemed like it would be a great post for Lori Tarkin first, because Lori is actually her specialty is health, so she's coming at this also from the perspective of what does bullying do to a person? What kind of toll does it take?
Okay, let's go ahead and bring Lori in then right now. She's joining us from New Jersey. Lori is a blogger who writes a blog called Peak Performance. You may have seen it. And she wrote a post about bullying just a short time ago, a few months ago. Lori, hi. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about what made you decide to write this post, and as Pam was just saying, the effects that it can have on a person's health when it comes to bullying.
Well, I've written a lot about stress and even like post-traumatic stress disorder in different populations, and so I thought this was interesting. And the studies show that being bullied at work can lead to a number of like mental and physical ailments like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as other signs of stress like sleep problems and physical issues like high blood pressure, rapid heart rate, and so it really affects people physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm. Pam, one of the things we were talking about earlier is that bullying can be really hard to define, can't it?
Right. Yeah, Lori, these laws that are being debated now, the bills, how are they defining bullying? How did this survey define bullying? If somebody accuses you of doing something that you didn't do, is that a form of bullying? Just what is bullying?
Well, bullying is not like I don't think one isolated, sort of negative interaction with somebody. I think really bullies target one person generally. And so if you're being bullied, you're feeling kind of victimized by somebody on a regular basis. So it encompasses like verbal abuse, intimidation, humiliation. You might be isolated from other people at work, not invited to meetings, not involved in decision making. So it's really, and the bully will definitely try to sabotage your work. So they might sort of spring surprise meetings on you, or just send too much work your way, or even disparage you in front of other people in your work.
I think in this study that was recently done, here are some of the things that the people were asked, the survey participants were asked, if they were bullied in these ways. Some examples. My comments were dismissed or not acknowledged. I was falsely accused of mistakes I didn't make. I was harshly criticized. I was given mean looks, was even one of the topics here, the things that people could respond to. Now, it seems very difficult to say that these are necessarily strong examples of bullying. Isn't some of this in kind of the feelings of the person who says they're being bullied, really rather than something that can be objectively looked at?
I actually received a bunch of letters, emails after I posted the blog on bullying. And there seemed to be a common thread, which was that there was like a moment where things just turned. So this person was, a normal working person that had a lot of success, and suddenly maybe a new boss came in, or a third person was hired, and things just sort of turned around, and they were suddenly becoming victimized. So I kind of, it felt like this thread was like, it wasn't just, you always, people tend to blame the victim in a sense, and it really seemed like these were really competent, successful people that just happened to suddenly be with somebody who was bullying them.
And Pam, what did you see when you looked at the comments to Lori's blog post? Were you finding that many of the readers agreed?
Well, there were a lot of stories to Lori, a lot of comments that people made. Here's one of them. I sought help. The therapist led me to the conclusion I should quit my job. I had always been respected and asked to collaborate until this person came in and tried to shut me down with all sorts of micromanaging and public slights that wore me down. She even kidded me that she could ruin my career after my rebuttal of a performance evaluation. I felt helpless. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. HR was reluctant to help. This was in the HR department. I believe legislation is very much needed.
So let's talk about that for a minute in terms of legislation and where that stands right now. Lori, in your blog post, I'm just going to look it up here, but you say that many states actually are looking at bringing some laws to bullying and finding ways to outlaw it. Tell us about where that stands.
And how do they define bullying in the laws, in these bills?
Well, right. And I guess one I sort of describe what bullying is, but a very important aspect of bullying is that you have to have some sort of physical or mental disability from it. Maybe disability isn't the right word, but you need to be suffering from bullying, and that is an important thing that is written into the bills. I think there were about 20 states that have introduced bills. New York is, I guess, the closest because the Senate passed the workplace bill, and it's in the Assembly. A lot of bills have, obviously bills are dropped, and I think there are about 13 that are active currently.
And do you believe that this is necessary? Do we need to have laws on the books to protect against bullying?
The anti-discrimination laws cover people who are, I guess, a member of a group that is protected either by gender or race, things like that. And you could have, male-on-male bullying. It could be the same gender or the same race. And so if the bully is not different from you, basically, it's not considered discrimination.
And you're watching the live one here on BNET.com. Today we're talking about bullying in the workplace. Have you ever experienced it? Go ahead and write in on our live chat window. We'll bring your questions and comments to our experts who are joining us today. Pam Kruger is our BNET editor who's in New Jersey with us this morning. Pam, what are your thoughts on this from what you're seeing in the comments or your own feelings on it? Do you feel like it should be made illegal?
I don't know whether it should be made illegal. I think that it raises interesting questions. There was another blog post actually about a different survey done on bullying, and I just want to bring your attention to it. It also found 27% of workers saying they've been bullied in the office. And here are the things that the people said were bullying. My comments were dismissed or not acknowledged. I was harshly criticized. I was forced into doing work that wasn't my job. And I think that, it's like what you were saying before. I think, Priya, you were saying it, that this just raises questions of your perception. And so how do you prove that a manager is asking you to do work that wasn't your job for some nefarious reason, as opposed to the work needs to get done and we're short-staffed.
And Lori, I'll punt that back to you.
Well, I mean, another common theme I heard in these letters was that people really didn't get much help from HR. Like the letter that Pam read, I think, there might be superficial investigations, but usually, the bullies are people in power in the company or bosses, and, they're just the victims of bullying are not, they just don't feel like they're being heard by their human resource departments. So, where do they turn to? Very few people have filed any sort of, legal claims or sued. Very few people have been bullied. So I think a lot of people are out there just, maybe they leave their jobs, or, they're fired, or they just put up with it.
Yeah. All right, Lori Tarkin, thank you so much for joining us. Let's bring up Lori's blog post one more time. She writes the blog Peak Performance. She wrote about bullying at work and if it's a national epidemic. And we're going to let Lori go right now and bring in Suzanne Lucas. Suzanne is going to be joining us from Switzerland. She wrote a blog post that actually says bullying should not be made illegal, and she's going to tell us her reasons why in just a moment. Pam, I have to say, when I looked at some of those points that you had just been talking about, and I brought up a little earlier as well, about what seems to constitute bullying, it's very difficult to point to that and say, yes, indeed, that is definitely bullying. Some of them seem like they could be really tricky for managers to look at and acknowledge. So even if your employee comes to you and says, hey, Joe and the next manager above me or whatever is bullying me, and he's giving me mean looks, and I didn't get that project that I wanted to get. How do you then, as a manager, respond to that and say, yes, you're definitely being bullied?
Right, and I think that Suzanne brings a valuable perspective as a former HR person, because HR is normally who would be brought in to investigate something like that. And how do you document that a boss is dismissing your comments because he's bullying you, as opposed to just not feeling what you had to say was valid?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got Suzanne on the line now. Hey, Suzanne, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Hello. Suzanne writes the blog Evil HR Lady, which I love your title. And you come obviously from an HR background. Your blog post on this topic was why workplace bullying should be legal. So tell us why.
Well, the main reason it should be legal has been kind of discussed by Pam and Lori, is that it's very difficult to define, and that makes it very difficult to enforce, which raises the costs for businesses to do business. And what I would rather see is businesses spending their money on building their business, making it possible to hire more people, which means there are more jobs, which means if you are being bullied, you can get a new job. People talk about feeling trapped.
Let me ask you, though, and if you don't mind, could you turn your speakers down? I think we're hearing a little bit of feedback, Suzanne. If you can turn your speakers down there as I'm talking with you. So let me ask you about this, because you say you would rather make sure that there are enough jobs out there so that people, if they feel like they're being bullied, can go out and get a new one. But what we're seeing in the research is that the people who say that they have been bullied tend to be the younger workers and the older workers. The younger ones probably don't have the experience to really know, oh, I'm being bullied and what to do about it and how to handle it, or to quit and go get a new job, not knowing that this is not just part of the job, par for the course. The older ones may also be concerned about job security. So when it comes to simply leaving your job, it seems like perhaps that's not going to be the best answer for the people who say they're most affected by this.
The thing that's key there is people that say they are most affected by this. We're often the worst judges of our own performance. And when a manager or HR, someone comes to me and says, my manager is mean to me, I don't get invited to key meetings, my ideas are rejected, my coworkers go to lunch without me, all of that sounds terrible, but when you dig in a little bit, you find out that their ideas are stupid. They come late to meetings, so they don't get invited. Um, there are bigger problems, but the person complaining doesn't recognize any of those things in and of themselves. Generally speaking, it's a rare incidence where there is a victim and a perpetrator. Oftentimes, there's some going back and forth between good behavior and bad behavior on both people's parts.
And you're watching the live one here on BNET. If you have any questions or comments, please write in on your live chat window. We're talking about workplace bullying today. We're on with Suzanne Lucas, who is known as the evil HR lady on her blog here on BNET.com. One of the comments that we've gotten from a listener is that she's had a bully boss before, and the remedy, she says, is to bully back. Pam, are you seeing any of that in the comments to Suzanne's article?
Well, Suzanne, one question I have for Suzanne, though, is, Suzanne, do you believe that bullying actually exists in the workplace?
No, absolutely it exists. And it's a big problem. And I think companies should fire people that bully. But I also think it's so difficult for our legislature to define what that is. And to put legal restrictions around it just raises the costs of doing business.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the comments that I think was written into Lori said that she was demeaned, or he was demeaned and humiliated on a regular basis in front of other people. The person turned to HR. That led to a formal complaint, which was dismissed by an administrator with a statement, "This is a final determination. No further action will be taken." Do you think that HR sometimes is more likely to favor management's stance and see their role as sort of protecting management in these cases?
Absolutely. I picked the name evil HR lady because HR has a bad reputation amongst employees. And part of that is because there's a misunderstanding of the role of HR. HR isn't supposed to be your friend. It's supposed to help the company. And so there is a natural bias of HR towards the management of the company. Mm-hmm. Whether that's good or bad is another discussion altogether.
One of the comments that we've gotten written in here was that Bill Gates was known as a bully when he was CEO, as was Steve Jobs. Good luck complaining. And that goes to what you were talking about to some extent, Suzanne, that HR really is on the side of the managers and the company culture that they've created.
And keep in mind that most of the complaints that come into HR are not well-founded. People complain about everything and expect everybody to drop everything they're doing and fix the problem. Sometimes it's not actually a real problem. Sometimes it's a small problem. Sometimes you say, we're willing to take this boss who may not be as warm and fuzzy as you would like because he has great results. There's a lot of balancing that goes on in that.
All right. So what would you suggest that an employee does if they truly feel they're being bullied in the workplace? What would you suggest how would you suggest they move forward?
Well, first of all, they need to document. And by documenting, you can't just write down, my manager was mean to me today. You need to write down exactly what happened, what they said, what the circumstances were, et cetera, so that you have a clear statement of what was going on. Second thing is you need to stand up for yourself. If your manager is screaming at you, you need to say, this is unacceptable behavior, and turn around and walk out of the room. Real bullies are used to getting their way. They just are. And they are frequently masters at flying under the radar of people in authority. Anybody that went through junior high can tell you that. That there were bullies that were teachers' pets at the same time, which seems illogical, but that happens in the workplace too. If you can change that dynamic between the two of you and say, I'm no longer going to be a victim, sometimes that can actually snap the bully out of it because they're so shocked that things aren't going their way anymore.
So document and stand up for yourself. I think we need to start wrapping it up, but Pam, let me throw it to you. Anything you'd like to add at this point?
Well, just that I think it's one thing that we didn't talk about that I would just want to throw out there is that if it is a case where management is more likely to bully employees and you document this and there's no law, what good is that going to do you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
If it's the company president, it's definitely different than if you're reporting to someone 5 levels down. If it's the CEO, well, you know, who's going to stand up to Bill Gates or Steve Jobs? You either take it or leave it. But if you're reporting to Mr. Junior Manager, yeah, there can be some consequences to that person if you have well-documented evidence.
All right. Suzanne Lucas, thank you so much for joining us, Evil HR Lady. We look forward to having you back on again. Love reading your posts. And Pam Kruger, thanks for joining us from New Jersey. Pam Kruger, BNET editor. We appreciate having you.
Thank you.
So today our topic on the live one was bullying. It was great to have you all joining us. Join us tomorrow when we're going to be talking about summer interns, whether it's really worth your time to go through all those resumes and find someone who's going to work in your company for just a few months, how to get the best out of it for both them and for you. Join us tomorrow right here on the live one. Thanks.